Sometimes, life throws unexpected lessons at you. The truths you once believed in come crashing down in an instant. And that's exactly how my story began. I had only been at my new job for a few months. A big company, a promising career. But from the very first day, I felt an uneasiness that I couldn't quite explain. When I stepped into the office, I noticed the sharp glances of upper management. At first, I thought it was just curiosity toward a new employee. But I was wrong. The first few weeks went by without much trouble. My coworkers were warm and friendly, and I was focused on my projects. However, my manager, Jake, seemed to take a particular interest in me, more than what was normal for a boss. During meetings, his eyes lingered on me a little too long, and he found every excuse to call me into his office. At first, I convinced myself that he was just trying to be helpful. But then, the nature of our conversations started to shift. One evening, I was working late at the office. My workload was heavy, and I had to prepare an important presentation. I was sitting alone in my office when Jake suddenly walked in. He leaned in slightly and spoke in a hushed voice. "You're really impressive, you know that. But sometimes, you need to learn to relax. Life isn't just about work." There was something unsettling in his gaze. I tried to brush it off by steering the conversation back to work, but after that night, his interest in me became more obvious. Whenever he caught me alone, he would place a hand on my shoulder, or lower his voice to an intimate whisper. At first, I thought I was overreacting. Maybe I was imagining things. But then I realized it was worse than I thought. As uncomfortable as Jake made me, our company's CEO, Richard, was even worse. Initially, I assumed he was just a busy man, uninterested in anything beyond work. But soon, I realized his interest in me had nothing to do with business. One evening, after everyone had left, I was called into his office under the pretense of an urgent meeting. When I walked in, he was sitting at his desk, slowly smoking a cigar. In the dim light, there was a strange expression on his face. "Close the door, please," he said. A chill ran down my spine. I hesitated but obeyed. The silence stretched before he finally spoke. "A smart and beautiful woman like you is a great asset to this company. I hope you're happy here." I nodded, forcing a polite smile, wanting nothing more than to leave. You know, sometimes rules can be bent. If you really want to move up here, you need to trust me. The weight of his words hit me hard. I knew exactly what he was implying. My throat tightened, but instead of responding, I quickly excused myself and walked out. From that moment on, coming to work became unbearable. Jake and Richard were powerful men. One was the department head, the other was at the very top of the company. But I refused to let them push me into silence. After talking to a few female coworkers, I realized I wasn't alone. Other women had been through the same things I had. So, we made a plan. We began secretly recording conversations, saving inappropriate messages and emails. Bit by bit, we gathered the evidence we needed. Finally, we filed a formal complaint with corporate headquarters. The process wasn't easy. These men had influence, and they tried to discredit us, to twist the truth. But we stood our ground. In the end, an official investigation was launched against Jake and Richard. Throughout it all, we received overwhelming support, and the company leadership had no choice but to take action. Justice was served. But winning came with a cost. That chapter of my life had to close. I knew I couldn't stay there any longer. I left the company and started fresh in another city. Some nights, I still think about those dimly lit offices and the weight of those moments. But I know one thing, I didn't stay silent. I didn't let fear consume me. That's why I'm telling this story now, because somewhere out there, there's another woman going through the same thing, unsure of what to do. And to her, I say this. Don't be afraid. Don't stay silent. Their power comes from our silence. But we win when we speak up.